This is going to be a little bit of a different kind of tutorial. Rather than show you features and talk about the new stuff that you can do in Magic Bullet Suite 13, I'm just going to sit down and do some color work. It always kind of bums me out when a tutorial feels too prepackaged. I feel like there's not enough real information out there about how people do real-world color correction. I've been very lucky to sit in some color suites with some A-list colorists, and the experience of watching them work has always been educational to me. So I'm going to do the best I can to provide you with that same kind of experience here. So I've got this sequence of 4K shots here. I'm just going to do some color work on them, get them to match up real nice, using Magic Bullet Colorista IV. So starting on this shot, I know the footage is log, so I'm going to grab the universal log LUT, switch to log mode here, and start to just play around, just kind of get a feel. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I will tell you this. I often reach for this shadow control first in Colorista. And this is one of the biggest differences between Colorista and other color correctors out there. If you just grab the shadows and push them towards blue in almost any other color system, you get a really ugly image. And in Colorista, you get something really pretty. It's a great way to get started. Now, I'll talk very briefly about everyone's favorite thing to either love or hate, or usually some combination of the two, which is that blue and teal look. I'm not necessarily going for that look here, but I do find that I want to separate this guy's skin tone from the wall. If I reset here and in fact turn on the skin overlay, you can see that this guy is the same color as the wall. This steel garage door, this concrete floor, this concrete wall, everything in this shot is kind of warm. And if I start pulling this shadow control down towards blue, what happens is he stays person color, but the wall cools off. So, you could go crazy with this, go way too far with it. That's too much. A little goes a long way, and I'm just going to do a little. And then by counteracting that in the midtones, I keep him nice and warm. Okay, we'll turn the skin off. And I want to show you something else here. This process has really brought out some rich, saturated blue colors in this shot. And if I pushed those down here using the blue saturation control, moving this blue dot towards the center, that's fine. I like that better for these blue objects in the shot, but it's also coming at the expense of that cooling off that I put into the neutral shades. So I'm going to double click on that to reset it. I'm going to show you another cool trick here. Since we're using the universal log LUT, there's another variation on that log LUT called universal log cinematic. Now watch what happens when I switch to this version of the LUT. The blues get less saturated. What's really happening with this LUT is that the shadows are getting less saturated. This is a LUT that protects you from ever getting these crazy super saturated shadows. So it can actually push the shadows a little bit cooler, and I don't get that super saturated blue effect here. Just to compare again, here's universal log cinematic. It's a subtle thing, but I like it. Okay, so I think we're getting somewhere kind of pleasing with this. I don't want it to be particularly bright or cheery in here. Last thing I'm going to do is maybe just a tiny little bit of vignetting, and then maybe I'll just up the overall brightness with the highlights here. Looking pretty good. The last thing maybe I'll do here is try a little highlight recovery, just so I can see the subtlest amount of detail out there. I don't really want a lot. If I wanted a lot of detail out there, by the way, I could grab the highlights and pull them down. That's pulling even more detail out there. I don't really mind that for this shot. Maybe I will do that. Yeah, why don't we go ahead and do that? We'll leave that down too. All right, so here's before and here's after. I'm not sure if a before and after is really very useful with a log shot, but what's interesting about this shot is we've got this beginning part of it, I think, looking pretty great now. But as we play through, he walks over into a darker part of the room that has a really different kind of a color scheme to it as well. So compare this to this. Very, very, very different. So what I'm going to do is add a second colorista to this shot. So I'm going to grab a new colorista. I'm going to put it before the first. I'm not sure if that's strictly the only way to get the results I want here, but what I'm going to try to do is make the second half of the shot match the first. So let's just start in. I really don't know what my approach to this is going to be. I know that this shot feels well balanced, and this shot feels overall kind of yellow to me. So I'm going to go to my highlights control right off the bat, and I'm just going to pull them away from yellow. And I think that is kind of working. Also going to brighten it up. Now in doing so, I'm kind of turning him a little bit pinky purpley here. I'm really just going to color correct this part of the shot as if it was a separate shot. Midtones up maybe, highlights up, shadows down. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a keyframe here for strength. Then I'm going to go back. Actually, I guess that keyframe I should keyframe this more on the pan. So I guess I'm going to move that keyframe right here. And then let's go back to where that move began. Which is maybe, I feel like this is kind of where we were making that transition. We'll put strength to 0 here. Okay, this is going to be very interesting to try to get this to work out here. Yeah, here maybe the pan starts here. All right, so let's follow him through here and see how that's working. Now, right through here, I really want to take this second Colorista and turn on. So I'm going to go back to the panel here. Second Colorista. I'm switching between the two Coloristas here. Here's the first. This is the one for the second half of the shot. Here's the overall look. I want to check his skin over here. It's still working okay, but it does feel a little pink to me, so I will go back to that first Colorista. And in this one, I'm going to move red over towards orange. So there's sort of before, there's sort of after. Yeah, that's much better. And maybe a little more contrast here too. Okay, so now, you know what? I feel like this is the end of the move. Let's find that keyframe. That sort of feels like the end of that move to me. Okay, so I am thinking that that is a pretty big accomplishment. I mean, he's never going to be as warm. I think he's under a warm light here. He's never going to feel quite as warm when he gets over here, but let's see if maybe there isn't something we can do to have him not feel quite so in shadow here at the end. Again, I'm not sure how feasible this is, but let's just add one more Colorista. So again, this one's first Colorista here. I'm going to grow into the key. Now, the question is, can we separate his skin from the rest of the shot? This will be a good trick if we can. Grab the minus scrubber, see if I can get rid of some of this. All right, well, let's see if this is something here. This kind of thing is always a little bit risky, but I'm going to just try to bring the highlights up just on his skin. Not the worst thing in the world. Now let's go back into the key. Pump up the clipping a little bit more. Maybe the softness a tiny bit. All right, so let's see. Okay, so I'm going to say we would have to be really careful if we really wanted to do this. This is risky, at the risk of him looking a little glowy here. But maybe this at a strength of, say, 50% is not so bad. And again, maybe this is something that we would ramp in, or maybe this is something that we would kind of associate with like a spot on the wall here. So like, let's say, try to make this feel like a light that he's leaning into maybe. So I'm going to add a mask. So you can see now this key and the mask are working together. So that lighting effect is only happening inside that masked area. Soften it up, expand it out a little bit. I'm really just feeling this out. I have no idea if this is a good idea or if this is going to work. Okay, so what if that was something he kind of leaned into here at the end? So without it, with it, maybe now that I've got that mask, I could do 75% strength. And let's keyframe that mask. So mask path, and then roll back here. And it's going to go right here, right? Kind of there. So he's going to lean into it. There we go. Okay, so now we'll just tuck it over here. And earlier, we'll just keep it way off over here. Now, he's going to walk up and lean into that color. Okay, well, let's look at that one layer at a time here. The lighting on his face, the overall color shift for this part of the room, and the overall look. And if I turn them all off, here's the shot before, and here's the shot after. And if I go back to the beginning, can hit play. I think I'm finally reaching the limits of what's reasonable on my iMac here, so I'm going to switch to quarter res. And now I'm getting real-time 24-frame playback here, so I can preview how this is going to look. Okay, that's pretty cool. Start in on the next shot. Now, I'm not going to copy any settings from the previous shot because this is just such a different look over here. The only thing I'll do is I'll just start the same way with the same overall LUT. Now, the rationale behind that is that I want this all to kind of feel like it's part of the same movie. So I'm just going to use the same LUT. The color correction happens underneath the LUT or prior to the LUT. So the LUT is kind of the last step. It's sort of like the layer of varnish that makes all the woodwork kind of feel like it's part of one consistent piece of art. So out here, it's very bright, and I'm not really sure, again, what it should feel like out here, but I do see that I've got this nice reddy orange car, I've got some neutral and blue, I've got a leather jacket, and I've got some skin tone. So I think I can probably do my sort of same recipe of just subtly cooling off the shadows and bring the mids back up. But I really feel like I need to pull some more saturation out of this too, so I'm going to increase the contrast. That's getting there. This wall back here is looking a little blue. I'm wondering, yeah, I could just push these shadows a little more towards green. That's better. All right, that's not so terrible. It at least feels like it's kind of in the same world as this previous shot, even though it's a very different environment. Again, I can't help but want to just do a subtle amount of vignette here. So subtle. You can really push this too far, but I'm gonna just be careful. You know what I should do is I should switch this to log. That will actually change the look of the vignette. Can pick which one I like. Yeah, the log vignette is much more subtle, prettier. It's because it is designed to work with log footage. There's a camera move on here too, so that's going to change how much vignetting I feel comfortable doing. Okay. All right, so far so good. Okay. 2 adjustments I want to make here. One is to just kind of unify these blue tones just a bit, push these two closer together. So by making their hues more similar, I'm just kind of squinching all the blues into a more similar tone here. But again, I want to check my skin. She's doing great. He is not. His skin is falling into a little pit there. Not sure if that's a real big issue or not. The thing is, if I pushed red over enough to make his skin look great, then I'm changing the color of the car. So I think I'm into the category here of maybe doing another mask just for his face. Let's see how much work that would be. That's not going to be that bad. Let's do it. So again, a second colorista placed before the first. This one is all about skin. Just this. That's all it is. Wouldn't want to do that to her. I don't want to do it to the car, so I'm going to put a mask on it. Now, I got 2 choices here, I guess. I could let Premiere track this, or I could keyframe it manually. I'd love to take a coffee break and let Premiere do its thing, so let's give it a try, see how it does. Promising so far. This seems like it's going to take a little bit of time, but I never mind letting Premiere do its thing while I can sit back and do something else. I think this mask tracking technology in Premiere came from something else Adobe was working on that was designed to be extremely accurate, whereas if you look at something like the mask tracking in Resolve, it's designed really for speed more than accuracy, and I think that's a better trade-off for this kind of work. But again, I am so happy to not have to leave my editing app to do high-quality color correction that I don't mind waiting for this. The results are pretty great so far. All right, good job, Premiere. Let's just check our work here, but I feel like that really did great. Yeah, so I'm going to hit play, just watch through that. I don't feel like that needs a key or anything like that. It's just sticking perfectly to his face. Let's see what it looks like without. Yeah, he's so pink there. So we really fixed him up. That's great. Now, should we try pushing it? Should we try, I don't know, should we see if we can brighten him up a little bit? I mean, this is dangerous, but let's just see. Yeah, now we can see the little halo glowing around him there. Now I could try to combine this with a key and see if I can brighten up his face and use a key to protect the wall. Let's see. So let's just key the wall, and maybe what I'll do is switch to just a lightness only key. Get a nice clean key here. So all that's happening so far here is that the lines of the bricks are getting in there. There's a lot of detail in this 4K shot here, but a little bit of softness, just the tiniest amount, and then just white clipping here will actually squinch over those lines. And then I just need to invert the result. So let's see how that's doing. All right, so now I'm brightening his face inside the mask and also inside the key. So there it is, off, and there it is on, off and on. And just on that first frame, I'm getting a little bit of this brick included somehow. So let's see why that is. Why are you in the key, brick? There we go. I'll just soften this up. We don't want you, brick. There we go. Okay. Okay, we fixed the brick, right? Yeah. All right, so a little extra light on his face, a little control for his skin tones. Now, the last thing I can't help but do is do a little special treatment for the car. So a third colorista, again in front of the previous ones. And let's just talk just about the car. I'm just going to bring down the blue and the green just to sort of punch up that color of the car a little bit. Now let's see if this is an adjustment that we can isolate to just the car. There we go. It's starting to happen. Add a little plus scrub in the car. See if I can get the roof in there too. Again, I'm going to be worried about not getting their skin tones in here. So I'll use the minus scrubber. And what's happening here is that it's working, but I'm getting edges that aren't very soft. So I'm going to go in here and feather out my selections a little bit, especially in lightness. Those got really crunched up. Let's try to pull this away from the orangey reds to get to protect their skin. What happens when I minus his face here? Oh, that's right. I need to pull it away from reddy red too, because that's okay. Lose her arm here. Again, a little bit of softness. Let's see how that did for us. All right, so there's now just the car with that effect on it. So now we've got his face, the car. I'm going to switch the order of these here. So the car is first now, then his face, then the overall look. So here's without that car treatment. There we go. Okay, this is great. Okay, so I'm actually going to rename these real quick. Okay, let's play through. All those adjustments are playing in real time, which is amazing. Always makes me happy. All right, let's move on to the next shot. Let's see if those same settings will just move to this shot. All right, so I don't need the face, so I'll just get car and look. Copy. Hey, not bad. Check the key on the car. It's working okay. Really would love to not be getting his face there. What's the likelihood? Not so great. So let's see if we're bummed out that that car thing is affecting his face too. Oh, yes, we are. Okay, so they're getting a little ready. Okay, so it's a short shot. So here's what I'll do. Everything else is working great. She's matching really well across the cut. But he just needs a little mask for his face. Maybe she does too. Let's just see what happens here. So what we'll do is we'll create a rectangular mask. And yep, it is affecting her. So we'll invert the mask. That way, now I'm cutting a hole in that red color you can see here. So I'll just keep it on the upper half of the shot. Kind of perfect that it worked out that way. I find that when I'm adjusting these masks in Premiere, I want to zoom out because it's hard to drag these points off the edge. Get a little feather on there. And luckily, there's no tilt, so I don't even need to animate that mask, I don't think. Yeah. So let's go back to our fit view here. Okay, so now this colorista only affects the lower part of the car. Hey, that's pretty great. Okay, so I'm going to call that shot done. All right, last shot here. Again, we'll try just pasting those two on here. The car does appear in this shot towards the very end. There it is, and the key seems to be working great, but the overall look is completely not working. So let's get back in there to that look. Crank up the exposure. Now she is definitely getting affected by the key, so we'll have to fix that. And also the overall shot is just too cool, so we're going to warm it up a little bit color temperature wise. So the reason that her face is getting ruddy there is from this first colorista, the car one. Turn the strength down, and we don't have that problem. We could mask this effect, but the truth is I'm just going to do it by keyframing strength. Let's just go to effects control because she's fine here. And then her face is out of the frame just as the car is entering. So I'm going to take that strength of 0 on the car, and over just this 2 frames, I'm going to ramp it up to 100. And now she's not affected by the key, but the car is. Okay. But I still feel like she's looking a little pink. So let's check our skin tones here. Yeah, she's fallen completely off the skin truck here, so let's fix her up a little bit. Everything else about this shot is looking fine. I could just grab the hue control on the midtones and just see if I could swing them more towards yellow. Can I get where I want to be there? I'm having trouble getting it where I want because I'm not pushing that very hard. It's a little bit better this way, and let's see if I can just nudge it up. That is better. Okay, good, good, good. Now let's turn that off. Okay, there we go. I think this shot overall could just be a bit brighter, even though we've gone into this dark world of being in the car here. Now, I could try it with exposure, but I actually think I want to do it with midtones because that's also going to pull some contrast out. Lifting the mids is a nice way to brighten things up while reducing contrast, whereas if I lift the highlights, I'm going to increase contrast. Okay, now that feels like a cleaner cut there. That's working great. All right, so let's start at the beginning, kind of review. Now when I go back to that first part of the shot, he seems really yellow to me. I didn't notice it before, but boy, is he ever under a yellow light. He's actually better when he's over here. I wonder how much anyone would care if on this shot I just went and nudged yellow towards orange. It's going to affect this metal beam up here. Let's see that before. Very nice. Okay, let's see if that affected the end of the shot. Nope, not in a bad way. Okay, so in this shot we have a new color correction that animates in as we pan over, as well as a mask and a key brightening for his face that he leans into there at the end of the shot. In this shot we have a key for the car, a mask for his face, a vignette, and an overall look. In this shot we have largely the same settings, and here we have animating in our car key towards the end. And that's it. So I hope that gives you a sense of how I would do a complex multi-layered color correction using Colorista IV right inside of Premiere, using keys, masks, the new Colorista IV panel, getting real-time playback on 4K footage thanks to my quarter res proxy here, even with all these layers and masks and keys working together on a consumer grade iMac.